Hello and welcome to Trial TV Live. I am the Squeegee of Justice. Thank you so much for joining us today on a very chilly day for all of us, I'm sure. But we are in Verdict Watch, day 2 of Verdict Watch, day 11 overall. I appreciate you guys joining us today. Massachusetts versus Brian Walsh. So let's, we have a feed, but I have something I want to show you guys. We had a few people over the weekend send us a video that I want to watch with you guys. But for now, let's we can get over here just to. All right, I'm going to start my verdict clock in just a little bit. Let's see here. I'm going to set it up here, and we're going to get it going at 9 o'clock because they're scheduled to start at 9. So while we wait, I will say welcome in, welcome in. Tammy, good morning to you. Brat, Led Zeppelin, good to see you, or Led Zepp. Yeah, Deviant, the Bondi, yeah, sorry to hear about that. The Bondi Beach, just terrible, absolutely terrible. Joe and Jedi Platypus, good to see you. Crazy Mary Joan, yeah, Crazy Mary Joe. I'm looking at Joanne after that. Crazy Mary Joan. Crazy Mary Joe, good to see you. The McCormick family, the Bondi Beach shooting in, was it Sydney? Absolutely terrible. Richard, good morning to you. Leslie, hello, hello. Allie, good to see you. Amy Lee and Melissa, Hell Rider, thank you for joining us. Elizabeth, good morning to you. Jane, hello. Yeah, it's chilly. It's chilly all over. I got the fire going. We're going to dual stream. So when we're in Verdict Watch, we're starting a new trial. It's actually day 7, but I think we can catch them by like midweek. It's out of Arizona, so we're gonna jump over to that. But I've got the fire going. Let's see if I can show you the fire. Yeah, I got my fire going. I got my fire going over there. My guitar's not getting hot. Don't worry. I got a kitty over here. I got fire over there, got my warboard over there, got all kinds of things happening. So, yep, we got the fire going. It was 62 degrees in the office. It was like 40 degrees when I woke up this morning. So, very, very chilly. Yeah, it was a bad weekend. It was a bad weekend, Barry. Bondi Beach, Brown University, and Rob Reiner and his wife. Just absolutely terrible. Terrible weekend. Terrible weekend. Teresa, flannel. Nope, I don't have flannel on. It is flannel weather, though. Yeah, good to see you. Let's get this guilty. I hear you. Sunshine. Whoop, there you are. Ah. Good morning to you. 19. Mississippi isn't used to that type of cold. Led Zepp, 16. Yep. 22 in Georgia. It's chilly. It is a chilly morning, you guys. Chilly, chilly, chilly. All right. So I'll wait till 9 o'clock. I'll start my verdict clock, and then I've got two chatters. Dreamhorse and Lori sent us the same video, so I want to play that because it looks pretty good. I need an alibi. Good morning to you, Amy Lee. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome in, guys. Will Johnson, you are back. JMS, 20 degrees and 4 inches of snow. 13 in Connecticut for Barry. Gracie, good morning to you. Leslie, 37 in San Francisco. Wow, that's pretty chilly, right? Iowa backyard. Good morning. Less frigid, cold, but more wind. Yeah, Iowa. I was watching your cam yesterday. And I saw the little it's a little opossum that was chewing on the pumpkin. That was cute, but it looked windy, right? I could see the strands of snow or wind blowing across the the snowscape there. We actually have a wind chill here. That's how strong the wind is and as chilly it is. We actually have a wind chill. Jenny G, 5 feels like -3. Ooh, my goodness. Well, here, I hope that fire warmed you guys up. Let me hold on. Yeah, hold on. There's a fire. There. I hope the fire warms you guys up a little bit. Come on in, settle in, get yourselves warm and comfortable. Why are we so far behind? Why are they 5 minutes behind? All right, I'm gonna start my verdict clock here. All right, I'm going to get my verdict clock going again. They're five minutes behind. Interesting. All right, let me make sure I'm all caught up with these guys. I feel like I'm all caught up. Yeah, we're all caught up. All right. So there's a 5-minute delay, obviously. All right, so what I wanted to play before anything happens, like I said, 2 chatters, Dreamhorse and Lori, sent in this video. So I want to play this. So I think I can grab this. Let's see. There we go. All right, we're going to put this down here. I'm going to put that down there. And then I'm going to put this up. All right, so we're going to check this out. This was an interview from Boston 10, I think, NBC Boston 10. So let's check this out.
Welcome back to the Searches for Ana Walshe. I'm podcast producer Matt Fortin with a kind of interview we haven't done before. I'm speaking with Boston Magazine contributing editor Wyndham Lewis, and we'll discuss his fascinating 2023 article, The Secret Life of Cohasset conman Brian Walshe. Before we dive into this conversation that I thought was really interesting, I do want to emphasize that Brian Walshe has pleaded not guilty to the charges associated with his wife's disappearance and alleged murder. His attorneys have turned down our request for comment and interview requests, including for this episode, so we haven't been able to get his side of the story on the Boston Magazine article. We're having you on today because a couple years ago, in April of 2023, you wrote a big investigation for Boston Magazine called The Secret Life of Brian Walshe. Tell me about writing that story.
Well, it's an interesting story behind the story because, really what had happened, with Anna's murder was relatively well covered. But what people didn't know was who this guy was, and that became a very interesting, pursuit. So I got a call on January 3rd or 4th or 5th, I think. It was still a missing persons issue, and I had a friend who does a lot of PR for restaurants around Boston, and that's how I know her. I often write about food and lifestyle and all that other kind of stuff. So I got a call from this friend of mine, and she said, "Do you remember Brian Walshe?" And I said, well, this is Boston. Can you be more specific? And she said, Brian Walshe, the guy that used to have all those, expensive dinners and sort of court all the local food writers and editors. And I said, I hadn't really been in town lately, but I'll ask around. And I, started calling friends of mine who had been invited to these dinners and then attended these dinners and sort of, poking around about who this guy was. And it turns out that he was, sort of, in quotes, a chef groupie. He was a guy who really coveted being known to, the top chefs in town, was a real foodie, knew his stuff. But he would go in and ask if he could have a dinner for 10 or 12 people. And then he would insist on developing the chef's tasting menu with the chef, sort of ingratiate himself and get to know them better. And, then he would throw these, dinners that would, probably top out about, sometimes $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, with wine and drinks. And, that was his way of being a sort of big man around town.
So a lot of their network, Anna and Brian Walshe, you found through your investigation, they had a big network in this Boston restaurant scene, right? So tell me about what people were thinking and talking about when the news was first breaking in early 2023, right after New Year's that year, that Anna's missing, no one's heard from her, no one knows where she is. What were people saying?
People sort of, people were fairly skeptical because, people questioned his character, certainly. Some people thought he was a blowhard, thought he was kind of a, BSer, but No, but one person actually told me, and this is my favorite quote of the entire magazine article, and I can't remember if it made it into the copy or not, but somebody says, I can't imagine Brian killing somebody. I wouldn't think he'd want to get his nails dirty. And I thought that was kind of telling. People never saw him as violent or threatening. They've more found him sort of a dubious character if they didn't like him, or, a world traveler if they did like him.
But people weren't suspecting foul play.
No,
right
nobody
away.
suspected foul play, but it became fairly obvious fairly quickly that, there weren't a whole lot of alternative, ideas. I mean, there's always a chance that she could have, run away, but she has 3 children under 6 at that point. And she is, she's a present mother. I'm not going to sort of speculate on whether she's a good mother or bad mother, but she was present. She dealt with the kids. He was a stay-at-home father at that point. And they fought, they had friction, but I don't think anybody could see him getting violent. He had no history of that, no tendency toward it.
And similar to that quote that you just said, you spoke to someone who you identified as Brian's former best friend. They
Correct.
requested privacy, so you don't name them. And I'll just note that we have not talked to these anonymous sources that you spoke with, so we can't verify this ourselves. But that person you quote saying murder is so far out of his character, at worst he could throw a tantrum, but he wasn't violent.
Correct.
That's what people were saying.
Yeah, and suffice it to say that, the fact checkers over at Boston Magazine are pretty vigilant. So, the sourcing on this was reasonably good. Was good.
Was that challenging to get people to talk to you and open up about him?
Very. A lot of people didn't want to speak on the record. Most people didn't want their names used, and that's tough when you're writing something that has, real legal, consequences. So it was very difficult. There are certain people that were willing to talk. I was able to go back in her history and his. His is a little murkier even. Hers is fairly charitable. She came over from Serbia. She worked at the Inn at Little Washington, which is one of the preeminent restaurants in America. It's a spot down in Virginia that is famous for its hospitality. And, I think she worked her way up. I think she has a hospitality degree from university in Bucharest. But I also think that she, moved over here and was willing to, work she was a hard worker. And she was willing to, start off maybe even in housekeeping or reception, and worked her way up to, reservations director. And then she moved up to the Wheatley in the Berkshires, where she first met Brian. And, I think she worked for a time in Boston at the Ritz, but then she segued into real estate, where she worked for Jem Mutlu.
He was the last person who saw the two of them, right, on that New Year's Eve?
Correct. He left the house sometime after midnight, and I couldn't get him to speak with me. I mean, I'd contacted him certainly on multiple occasions, but he said, I will reserve speaking about any of this until after there's a verdict. And so I'm curious to talk to him after the fact. But he left the house, and by all, he has never intimated that there was anything but, a joyful evening. And, the last thing she ever wrote was I think a note to Jem on a champagne bottle, or maybe it was the other way around. He may have written it to them, but it was very positive. And here's to another great year. I'm looking forward to a lifetime of joy, or something along those lines. Something upbeat anyway. I'm not paraphrasing it properly, but certainly he left under the impression that they'd all had a great evening. And a few hours later, she was gone.
One thing that always spooks me too about all that is that the last Instagram she posted, I think was either New Year's Eve or a few days before, and I think it said something like, it was just a graphic, and it said, "Take the risk of optimism." I think that always kind of spooks me too. That was the last thing she posted.
Posthumous quotes are once it is read posthumously, they take on a crazy weight and a different tenor altogether. But I do know that before that evening, I think it was the day after Christmas, she had called her mother in some level of distress, saying that she wanted her mother to come immediately and help her. She was in trouble, and she didn't specify how, but her mother, because she had, she lived in Serbia, and it's not the easiest flight to book, and also she had several medical appointments that she had, that were coming up, so she was like, well, I think she was basically saying that, can I come a little bit later? But Anna was insistent that she come immediately, and she couldn't.
Yeah. Do you think one thing that Anna and Brian bonded over was this kind of, they both seem to like the finer things in life?
100%. I think, his sort of persona, or the character he portrayed outwardly, was very attractive to her, because a lot of people, I think it's cultural. A lot of people that knew him here kind of were skeptical about whether he was telling the truth all the time. But he put on, I think one of the things that is indicative of that, as we discussed a little bit, was the house he lived in. I mean, he lived in a $6+ million brownstone on Beacon Street. And, he would have people pick him up and drop him off outside that brownstone. He never intimated that it was his mother's house. He always allowed people to speculate that it was his, and that he was, a lot more successful than he was in life. Dating back to, he threw around a lot of money, so people will naturally, were like, how the hell does he make all his money? And there was no indication that he worked here, that he worked anywhere. He kind of had his days free. He kind of wandered about. So the speculation, as it does, becomes, what people believe. And it was rumored that he and his roommate at Carnegie Mellon, where he went to school for the first, I think, freshman, maybe 1 or 2 years, I can't remember. But he went to Carnegie Mellon, and the rumor was that he and his roommate from CMU had built a online airline ticketing company and sold it for $250 million. And that wasn't true, but he never disabused anybody of that fact.
So he let that rumor float around. He wanted people to think that was the case.
Yeah, like the house was his. It was one of those things that if it was said, he wasn't going to, correct anybody. And I think he really kind of puffed up when people, called him a millionaire, said he was an internet millionaire, which was a term before internet billionaire. But, people speculated that out loud, and, he just sort of smiled.
You mentioned his dinner parties that he would throw. In your article, you specifically outline one in particular back in 2010 at Sandrine's French Bistro, which, where was that? Was that Harvard Square?
It was
closed
Harvard
now.
Square, yeah. It's
Harvard
not around
Square.
anymore.
They closed in 2015, I think I read. Anyways, and you talked to someone who was there, and they really described his demeanor. I think you characterized it. He was acting like the father of a bride, going to table, just greeting everyone, making sure everyone was having a good time. But what did that person that you interviewed glean from that? Because she had a little bit more of an analysis.
Well, she spoke to me on the record. So that was Amy Traverso, who's now the food editor at Yankee Magazine, formerly the food editor at Boston Magazine. And, she is, for anybody who knows her, she is a very smart and very honest straight shooter, and is the kind of person who wouldn't be fooled by something so, all these grand gestures. She was kind of like, this guy's full of hot air. And she kind of, she wasn't alone in seeing through it, but, there wasn't a moment where she was taken and then corrected. It was immediate for her. She just saw this guy and was like, no, thank you. There's other people who I talked to who I do remember I asked one person in particular who was another editor at Boston Magazine, who said that she kind of knew who he was from afar, and so she never attended any of the parties.
I think it was described as kind of, there was a neediness about him.
Yeah, I think there was definitely, I mean, I think the whole thing, even the person who, described themselves as his best friend said there was not.
All right, just want to give a quick update. I'm going to start the stream for Arizona versus Ian Mitchell. So if you guys want to join us over there, we're going to start that stream. Going to keep this one going, obviously, while we are in Verdict Watch. But I'm going to jump over and start the other stream. So if you want to join us there, please do. If you want to stay here, that's fine as well.
His desire wasn't to be rich. His desire was to be known as rich. Or I'm interpreting, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but it was more the attention that he craved than it was, any of the actual trappings. It was, this guy wanted to be puffed up. He wanted to be made to feel, great.
I mean, who was going to all these parties?
Well,
it sounds like they were pretty big.
A lot of people went to one of them. You know what I mean? And then there was probably a handful of people that went to several of them. But frankly, it was he curated the list. It wasn't this wasn't a open invitation. This was he wanted to know the editors he wanted to know the food writers around town. He wanted to know other chefs around town. He wanted to know the sommeliers around town. Anybody who was in, that orbit who was important, he would invite to this kind of gathering. And, they were, by all, senses, they were good. They were, he does, he's still with us. Still, he does have a very deep knowledge of food and wine. And so they were good.
It sounds like, too, if you listen to some of the statements made, I mean, he was actually a really good cook, or he is a good cook. I think on that New Year's Eve, some people mentioned that he was cooking up a storm on that New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it was important to him. And that was part of it is if you could put up with the neediness and the desire to be thanked, constantly, and his making the chef come out and sort of do a little, show with him, where they said, well, where he takes, no credit for the evening, and by taking no credit, takes all the credit. You know what I mean? He sort of says, this is the guy you really need to thank, and it's sort of by presenting him, it's sort of a form of like ownership or that you're dictating the the evenings. It's just an odd thing to have to be thanked that much.
You did know in your story that you were told that on some occasions, I don't remember how many, maybe it was one, maybe it was more than one, people said that he had some trouble paying for these big dinners.
Yeah.
What did you hear about in terms of that?
Well, that's how some friendships were started, and that's how some friendships ended. He frequently, I shouldn't say frequently, I should say I definitely heard on multiple stories about him throwing the party and at the end of the night having credit card trouble, or which he always, again, another way of sort of bolstering his own, sort of stature in the world. He would talk about his money handlers and his accountants, and it sounded like he had a team of, it sounded like he, sort of had all of Morgan Stanley, trying to get his credit card straight. But his credit card would be declined, and he never defaulted on any of it. But I know in one case, he took several months to get it right after, and he was one of those people who frequently, or in this case, he continually sort of kept in touch saying, "Oh, did you get my payment?" And the person would be like, No, I didn't." And he'd be like, "Oh God, I told them to give it to you." So he would buy time by sort of, making excuses and just blaming other people. But ultimately, I don't think he left a lot of bills unpaid in full. I think he made good on almost all of them, but it was always a scramble.
He had to leave, a watch as collateral one time?
And I think that was part of, it might almost have been that almost sounded planned to me. He left I forget what the guy said. I think a $2,000 watch or a $4,000 watch or $10,000 watch or something as collateral for the bill he couldn't pay. But it almost felt like that was a reason to show off the watch and then come back. And he left. So the tab was $6,000. I think it was a $10,000 watch. He left it as collateral. And then he came back the next day with $6,000 in cash for the bill and an additional $2,000 for the inconvenience. So it almost felt stagey.
So you also write about this art fraud case that we've covered a lot in this podcast, where he ended up pleading guilty to selling fake Andy Warhol paintings. That case we did profile a lot. One, the interest in it. Two, there's a lot of information.
Indictment 2023-0091. Defendant and counsel are present in court. Counsel, if you'd once again identify yourselves to the court in the record, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Greg Conner for the Commonwealth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Ann Yaz for the Commonwealth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Tracy Cusick for the Commonwealth.
Welcome.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. Kelly Porges on behalf of Mr. Walsh.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Larry Tipton for Mr. Walsh.
Good morning to everyone. We had a little delayed start because one of our jurors is absent today, luckily. Is juror number 15, who is an alternate juror. I'll see counsel at the side of the bench.
So a juror is absent today. Holy smokes, a juror is absent. But it was an alternate. An alternate juror is absent. The juror 15 is absent. And here I thought this would go nice and smooth. Should I stop the clock? Does the clock stop? What do you guys think? Do I stop the clock? Do I stop the clock? So juror 15 is absent. All right, sorry guys, we have something going on over in Brian Walsh land. So this is the joys of dual streaming. You just never know what's going to happen. So before we start Mitchum, I just want to make sure I know what's going on over here. So I'll be back.
Jurors entering, all rise. Hear, all person having anything to do before the Honorable Diane Fernier, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court. Draw near, give your attendance, and shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth. You may be seated. Court is in session.
Good morning, jurors. Good morning. Jurors, I'll start today. Hope you all had a nice weekend. We'll start today, as we have every morning of this trial, with the 4 questions. Jurors, were you able to comply with my order that you not speak to anyone about this case? Yes. Were you able to comply with my order that you not do any research about this case? Yes. Be able to comply with my order that you not go on social media or any news media? Yes. And do you all still have open minds?
Yes.
Jurors, you may have noticed that we were delayed in starting today, and juror number 15, who is an alternate juror, is not here today for purely personal reasons, and it has nothing to do with this case and shouldn't impact your day in any way. But I did want to not make mention of the fact that juror number 15 isn't here, because then you might be wondering that it's purely personal. Nothing related to this case. All right? So with that, jurors, I'll send you back to your deliberations. Thank you very much.
Jurors entering, all rise. Please bring your notebooks with you. Watch your step.
Follow me, please.
I just remind you of the 10-minute rule. Always be within 10 minutes of the courthouse. Thank you.
All rise.
All right, so now we'll get back to that interview.
An effort into this to remain interested, and I've stayed in touch with some of the sources, sort of exchanged when there's news, which has been fairly arcane legal maneuvers of late, but every once in a while I'll
working in hotels, basically cleaning rooms and working the front desk. And by the time she died, she was a high-powered executive.
Yeah, she was doing well in real estate and moving up. And there's part of the rub is she had basically relocated to Washington D.C. and was going to make that permanent. Probably she bought a house in D.C. before she died, which obviously telling that she was not planning probably to come back to a rental property in Cohasset, which was paid for by his mother.
So you did the story a little over 2 years ago now. Mm-hmm. You mentioned a lot of people, it was hard to get people to talk, especially when it's a pending case like this. The trial's in October. Do you think you're going to kind of touch base with some of these sources after that? And
definitely.
See what there is, see what else they'll tell you?
Yeah, I mean, I think... I don't think there's a follow-on story necessarily for me, but I'd certainly put enough time and effort into this to remain interested, and I've stayed in touch with some of the sources, sort of exchanged when there's news, which has been fairly arcane legal maneuvers of late, but every once in a while I'll talk to people from that world again and update them, or they'll update me, or whatever. But it's obviously, if you are very close to somebody and they do something unspeakable or allegedly do something unspeakable, and you would never have seen it coming, it resonates, it stays with you. It's not like these people can unknow him.
I mean, what do people think of it now? Has their thinking changed a little bit since you first talked to them when this was first happening, and it's kind of a shock factor, and now it's like, okay.
I think he ruptured a lot of his friendships the first time he was arrested for fraud.
In the arts
case. Which is a much less shocking crime, but it's still, when you find out that your friend is a con man and a thief, I think a lot of friendships ended at that point. People were like, wow, he can't be trusted. He's just, those suspicions I had about him not being a good guy are confirmed, and I think I'm just going to walk away. So that by the time he allegedly killed his wife, you had compounding factors. This guy was on house arrest, COVID lockdown, and sort of isolated from his friends by virtue of his own misdealings, and he was pretty isolated. And the last touchstone he had really socially was his wife, and she appears to have wanted to leave him. So all was lost. All that hard work that went into to making him a high society guy was gone.
All right, Wyndham, the secret life of Brian Walshe. Anything else that you want to talk about?
I'm interested to see what goes on next. I'm interested to see how the case is presented, and really I'm interested to see what happens to Brian Walshe.
All right, the clock has stopped, even though their clock is still going. But the clock has stopped, according to another source. Remember, there was a 10-minute. There was a 10-minute. 10-minute rule. Judge asked the people to be within 10 minutes. To be within 10 minutes. So their verdict clock is still going, but the other source has it stopped. So we'll see what happens. We'll stay. We'll keep our eyes out. So we'll see what happens. We're here though. We're here and we're ready for whenever they come back in. We're ready.
We're back on the record in the matter of Commonwealth versus Walsh.
The jury's reached a verdict.
Will the deliberating jurors and the defendant please remain standing? Everyone else in the courtroom may be seated.
Your Honor, may I inquire?
You may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Brian Walsh, have the deliberating jurors reached a unanimous verdict?
We have.
Thank you, sir. If you could hand that to the court officer, please. Your Honor, may the verdict be recorded.
It may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Brian Walsh, Norfolk Superior Court Criminal Indictment Number 2023-0091. As to count one, wherein the defendant Brian Walsh is charged with murder in the first degree, what say the jury? Is the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty of what, sir?
Murder in the first degree.
Murder in the first degree, so say you, Mr. Foreperson.
I do.
Guilty of murder in the first degree, so say all deliberating jurors.
I do.
Thank you. If you could hand that back to the court officer, please.
At this time, we'd move to poll the jurors.
The jury may be polled.
Thank you. Juror number one, juror in seat number one. As to the verdict of murder in the first degree, is that your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror number two, your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number three, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number four, as to the charge of murder in the first degree, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Mr. Foreperson, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 8, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 9, is that your verdict? Yes. Juror in seat number 10, is that your verdict? Juror in seat number 13?
Yes.
Is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 14, is that your verdict?
Yes.
And last juror, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Your Honor, all jurors answer affirmatively that the guilty of first degree is their verdict.
The verdict may be recorded. Please
Thank
be
you.
seated.
Seated.
So, jurors, I want to thank you for your service on this case. I know that it went a little bit more quickly than we were expecting, but your service has been substantial. We're in the third week of this trial, and I appreciate all you did to be obedient to those rules that I placed on you and for your conscientious service as jurors in this case. I will be back to meet with you privately in a moment. You should feel a weight lifting off of you right now because I'm releasing of you of those requirements. You can talk to anyone about this case or no one at all. You can do whatever research you wish to do about the case or not at all. You go back on social media if you want, news media. And I'm supposed to release you from that burden of being open-minded. But I hope you always go through your lives with open hearts and open minds, new experiences and new people. I'll be back in just a minute to meet with all of you privately. Thank you very much, jurors.
Jurors exiting, all rise. Jurors, follow me, please.
When are we going to be in a position to have the victim impact statements and conduct the sentencing in this case?
Your Honor, I believe that we could do it as early as Wednesday of this week, but I believe if it's available to the court, we can also do Thursday or Friday.
I know that Friday's definitely not a good day for the court because I have other things scheduled. I anticipated the trial was going to be running, so I scheduled other things, although we could do it Friday morning. Does the defense have any preferences to the timing of the sentencing?
Your Honor, given the Commonwealth's recommendations, we'd actually request Wednesday at any point, if that's possible.
All right, I think it will be. I'll just, the only reason that I wouldn't do it on Wednesday is I do want the victim impact statements, regardless of the implications of the jury's verdict. It may have bearing on my sentencing on the other counts to which he pled guilty.
That's right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
All rise.
Matter is continued to December 17th at 9 a.m. for sentence and position.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Court stands in recess.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sue.
Oh, great. Were you around? Thank you.
All right. So there he goes. Off he goes. Sentencing will be December 17th on a Wednesday. Excuse me, Wednesday. And that's that. And that's that. So off he goes. Brian Walsh. Guilty. Guilty in the first degree. 6 females, 6 males. Victim impact statements and sentencing will be Wednesday at 9 a.m. So I guess I know where we'll be. Wednesday at 9 a.m. December 17th. All right, you guys. I'm going to shuttle us over to, let me add a redirect. We'll shuttle on over to, now we can focus on Arizona versus Mitchum. So let me add a redirect, and we can get over there. Oh, redirect's already done. Good job, Aaron. Thank you so much for that. All right. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. We have justice for Ana. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. We have justice for Ana. Not much of a, you know, I don't know. I didn't think that was too surprising in my opinion, but that's what we have. So, all right, guys, thank you for watching. Appreciate you. We will see you Wednesday, the 17th at 9 a.m. for sentencing. Until then, take care of yourselves. Come hang out with us over at Arizona versus Mitchum. We're watching that right now. We're in day 2. Thank you to our mods, and thank you to Aaron, and we will see you guys in a little bit over there. Take care. Bye.